Every time you use a pencil, eat a fruit or a vegetable, sit on a piece of wooden furniture, or read a magazine, you're using products derived from vascular seed plants, specifically from the two largest plant groups, gymnosperms and angiosperms. What are gymnosperms and angiosperms? What are some of their characteristics? How are gymnosperms and angiosperms similar? And how are they different from each other? How do they reproduce? What are some of the various types of plants within these groups? And what are some of the ecological and economic contributions of gymnosperms and angiosperms? During the next few minutes, we're going to answer these questions and others as we explore the fascinating features of gymnosperms and angiosperms. In the humid Carboniferous period, plants in the form of seedless, spore-producing ferns and tree ferns were abundant. It was during this period that most of the Earth's coal deposits were formed, as lush vegetation sank quickly into vast swamps. Toward the end of the Carboniferous period, seed plants began to become more common. As Earth's climate changed to a drier, cooler one during the Permian period, 248 to 290 million years ago, seed plants proliferated and became the dominant plants. Vascular seed plants have continued to be the most successful and widespread plants on the planet, with over 290,000 known living species. Many more will undoubtedly be discovered. Vascular seed plants contain vascular tissue in their roots, stems, and leaves. They reproduce via seeds. Gymnosperms and angiosperms are the two major groups of vascular seed plants. From an evolutionary perspective, seeds represent an important advance. You decide. Why do you think seeds are advantageous? Seeds have several advantages. Seeds are protected from many environmental factors such as drought and predators by an extra layer of tissue. Seeds can also be dispersed in a variety of ways. Because seed plants don't need to rely on water to reproduce, they've been able to spread to drier climates. And the presence of seeds introduces a dormant phase into the life cycle of seed plants. This enables the embryo inside the seed to survive until environmental conditions are favorable for growth. These distinct evolutionary advantages have enabled gymnosperms and angiosperms to become prolific, colonizing most parts of the globe. Gymnosperms are the most ancient groups of seed plants, first appearing about 300 million years ago. During the age of the dinosaurs, 65 to 230 million years ago, they were the dominant form of plant life on Earth. While they're not quite as prolific today, gymnosperms still make up vast tracts of forests, particularly in the mid and upper latitudes of the northern hemisphere. What makes a gymnosperm a gymnosperm? Gymnosperms are non-flowering vascular plants that produce seeds not encased within specialized structures. The name gymnosperm combines the Greek word gymnos, or naked, with sperma, or seed. In other words, gymnosperms are naked seed plants. The ovules are naked at the time of pollination, but the seeds can be enclosed by tissue at maturity. The seeds of most gymnosperms develop within cones. Gymnosperms have true roots, stems, and leaves, but in many species, leaves take the form of hard, stiff needles. The stems of gymnosperms contain cambium. That enables the stem to grow in diameter. Let's take a look at the life cycle of a common gymnosperm, the pine tree. Pines exhibit alternating generations with separate sporophyte and gametophyte forms. The sporophyte phase is dominant in gymnosperms. The sporophyte phase is diploid. That means it has double the number of chromosomes. The gametophyte phase consists of male pollen that contains sperm cells and part of the female pine cone. The gametophyte phase is haploid, which means it has half the number of chromosomes. You've probably seen pine cones either on pine trees or laying on the ground. Pine trees produce two types of cones: male cones that produce pollen, and larger female cones called seed cones that generate ovules. Most pine trees have both male and female cones on the same tree. You observe. Do these cones look the same? No, the male pine cone seen here looks quite different from the female cone. The male cone produces huge amounts of pollen, which is released in the spring. Pollen grains contain male sperm cells. Female cones, seen here, possess ovules that produce egg cells. Pollination occurs when pollen lands on the female cone. Once on the cone, the pollen grain forms a pollen tube that extends to the female ovule. When the ovule is reached, a sperm cell fertilizes an egg in the ovule. The fertilized eggs develop and become seeds within the female cone. When they're mature, the cone opens and the seeds are released. This usually occurs in the fall or winter. The complete pine life cycle often takes 2 to 3 years from the time cones form until seeds are released. There are over 700 species of gymnosperms worldwide. They're grouped into 4 phyla: Cicadophida, Ginkgophida, Cnetophida, and Pinnophida. Cycads in the phylum Cicadophida number about 100 species and grow in subtropical and tropical climates. These slow-growing plants look similar to palm trees, but tend to be shorter. The trunk is topped by a cluster of feathery leaves. They produce cones and have a life cycle similar to that of pines. Although ginkgos in the phylum Ginkgophida were common during the age of dinosaurs, only one species remains, the maidenhair tree. This tree sheds its broad fan-shaped leaves in the fall and has separate male and female reproductive structures on the same plant. Due to its beauty, resistance to air pollution, and its ability to survive with limited water, it's commonly planted along city streets. Cnetophytes in the phylum Cnetophida include about 65 different species of plants. About half the species of cnetophytes are in the genus Ephedra, a common plant found in arid regions of North America. Conifers in the phylum Pinnophida are the largest and tallest living things on the planet. Most conifers in the phylum Pinnophida possess needles or scaly leaves that remain green throughout the year. They're commonly referred to as evergreens. Their needles prevent water loss, thus enabling them to live in drier, colder climates than other gymnosperms. Conifers also reproduce via cones. Conifers are also the oldest living organisms on Earth. Bristlecone pines, such as this one, can live to be nearly 5,000 years old. Examples of conifers include pines, spruces, firs, larches, yews, cedars, hemlocks, redwoods, and cypress trees. Spruce and fir trees commonly live at high altitudes and in colder climates. Cypress trees, on the other hand, tend to live in moderate and warm climates. Regardless of their type or location, conifers make up significant tracts of forest, providing valuable habitat for a wide range of living things. Conifers serve as a valuable source of wood for buildings, furniture, and fencing, and they're used in producing a wide range of paper products. The vegetables in this salad, the grass this deer is eating, and the sugar used to sweeten this cake are all foods derived from the most abundant group of plants on the planet, angiosperms, the flowering plants. Over 290,000 known species of angiosperms live from the poles to the tropics. Angiosperms are by far the most abundant, diverse, and successful group of plants. Flowering plants inhabit dry deserts, extremely cold Arctic environments, and can live even directly in water. Angiosperms not only include plants with readily noticeable flowers, but also most trees, such as oaks, maples, and birches. Angiosperms also include coconut and cactus. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, and herbs, as well as corn, wheat, rice, and grains, are all foods derived from angiosperms. Angiosperms are noted by the presence of flowers that contain the reproductive structures of the plant. Other plant groups do not have flowers. Separate male and female parts, often contained in the same flower, produce male pollen and female eggs. The process of pollination involves the transfer of male pollen from the male part of the flower, called the anther, to the female stigma on the same plant or another plant. Pollination can be carried out by the wind or by animals, such as birds or insects. In flowering plants, seeds develop in a structure called a fruit that is actually the mature ovary. You decide. Where are the seeds in an apple tree located? The seeds are contained within the edible fleshy fruit toward the center. Fruits house and protect seeds, and they often help disperse them to new locations. Angiosperms are grouped, described, and classified based on a wide variety of characteristics. One common way angiosperms are grouped is based on the characteristics of their seeds. Angiosperms are often described as being monocots or dicots. Monocot seeds have one cotyledon, or seed leaf, that nourishes a young seedling. Examples of monocots include corn, grasses, palms, and lilies. These plants have parallel leaf veins, fibrous root systems, flower parts that come in multiples of 3, and other common characteristics. Dicots, on the other hand, possess seeds with 2 cotyledons. Roses, beans, and most broadleaf trees are examples of dicots. Dicots have leaf veins that are in a branching net-like arrangement. They possess taproots and flower parts that come in multiples of 4 or 5. Regardless of whether angiosperms are monocots or dicots, their fundamental reproductive structure is the flower. During the past few minutes, we've explored some of the fascinating features of gymnosperms and angiosperms. We began by discussing some of the general characteristics and organs of vascular seed plants. Gymnosperms, The naked seed plants were then investigated. The four main phyla of gymnosperms were highlighted. Next, the main features of angiosperms, the flowering plants, were explored. Special attention was given to the general process of angiosperm reproduction. Last, the characteristics of monocots and dicots were investigated, rounding out our investigation of the fascinating features of gymnosperms and angiosperms. Fill in the correct word to complete the sentence. Number 1. And angiosperms are the two major groups of vascular seed plants. Number 2. Are the primary reproductive structures in gymnosperms? Number 3. The diploid phase in gymnosperms is dominant. Number 4. Seeds and plants such as pines and cycads are referred to as being Number 5. Conifers possess stiff instead of broad leaves. Number 6. Fruits and vegetables are in the group referred to as Number 7. Angiosperms are often referred to as the plants. Number 8. Involves the transfer of pollen from the male part of a flower to the female part of a flower. Number 9. The ripened ovary that surrounds a seed is called the And number 10. Possess seeds with a single cotyledon.